Now, we're joined by Laurent taking a look at those newspapers, and they're leading with one big visit happening out in Washington. Emmanuel Macron meeting Donald Trump.
That's right. He's on his way to Washington for a 3-day official tour with Donald Trump. There's quite a bit of skepticism, it must be said, about how much Macron can achieve beyond the veneer of this bromance that everybody keeps speaking about. We know the two men are close, but will Donald Trump heed Macron's advice on hot topics like the Iranian nuclear deal, climate change, those kind of things? The communist paper L'Humanité calls Macron Donald Trump's last best friend. He's essentially filling a void that's been left by souring relations between Trump and Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, as well as Trump and Theresa May, the British prime minister. For the paper, Macron's gamble of trying to develop a special relationship with Trump has so far been to no avail.
And called a special relationship, I think it's kind of an awkward relationship at times, but that nonetheless, that is in the focus in the U.S. papers too.
Particularly because that special relationship could be tested on the hot-button topic of the Iranian nuclear deal, which Macron is hoping to convince Trump to keep. Europe's leaders believe Macron is really the only person capable of getting to Donald Trump. That's according to the Washington Post. For all their show of friendship, will the Washington Post and New York Times both say that the French people don't believe that Macron and Trump have a real bromance. In fact, according to the New York Times, Trump is the next in a line of older power figures that Macron, quote, cleverly uses and then leapfrogs over, much like he did with his mentor, François Hollande. Though with Trump so far, Macron hasn't made much progress on any of the hot-button topics.
And that's a focus also in the French paper Le Figaro, where they're talking about it doesn't matter if they're friends or not. The two leaders need each other, don't they? That's
right, and we know this because Trump is really rolling out all the stuff, pulling out all the stops to welcome Macron. He'll be treating the French president to a dinner at Mount Vernon, where you can find the key to the Bastille prison, which is a gift from Lafayette to George Washington in 1790. This kind of Franco-American symbolism is exactly what Macron loves, and no doubt that's why Trump has selected this place for that reason. As Le Figaro's editors explain, they may be different, but they get each other because both of them were victorious outsiders when they were elected. Both of them, in their own ways, want to break down the system. Macron could be the, quote, Donald Trump whisperer, but it remains to be seen if that voice will be heard.
And you've also found reactions after weekend protests on the streets of Armenia's capital against the country's newly appointed Prime Minister Sarkisian.
Well, 50,000 people took to the streets over the weekend after talks between him and the leader of the opposition party, Nikol Pashinyan, broke down. Some 200 people were arrested, including Pashinyan himself. The political unrest did begin about much earlier this month after Sarkisian was named prime minister just after finishing his terms as president, a move that many see as his attempt to stay in power after that constitutional amendment in 2015 transferred powers from president to prime minister. It's prompted an interesting editorial from an Armenian paper called Aravat. Aram Abrahamyan speaks of a long-term mutual distrust between authorities and citizens, on the illusion of authorities that they're improving the country and the illusion of citizens that the powers that be will save them.
Meanwhile, the fallout continues for Israeli-American Natalie Portman after she refused to attend a Jewish prize ceremony where she was being honored.
That's right. The actress refused to attend the Genesis Prize Foundation ceremony. Think of it like, well, some have dubbed it the Jewish Nobel Prize Awards. She was due to be given a $1 million prize there. She said she wasn't attending, the reason being because she didn't want to be seen as endorsing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was also due to give a speech there. She's been accused by some of the ruling Israeli officials of being, quote, almost anti-Semitic, of supporting the anti-Israel BDS movement. Some have even called for her to be stripped of her Israeli citizenship. It's really divided the press, though. You see in this article from the Jerusalem Post, one Israeli writer has written an open letter to her saying, "Shame on you for your terrible behavior," adding, I quote, "It's not about the criticism, which we welcome here. It's about the way you do it and at this moment in time." She's getting a lot of support in the press, too. The Forward, which is a New York-based paper for Jewish people, applauds Portman for teaching us how to criticize Israel with love. And in this article, the writer says it's hardly different from, for instance, NBA players who refuse to meet with a certain U.S. president.
Yes, well, Emmanuel Macron meeting with that president today. Finally, shifting gears, Japan mourning the death of the oldest person in the world.
That's right. Her name was Nabia Tajima. She died over the weekend at the age of 117. She was the last surviving human from the 19th century. And the website Quartz notes that she lived through the introduction of cars, air travel, TV, space travel, the internet, and smartphones, and Donald Trump as president, we might add, as well as 2 world wars. Her native Japan was actually ruled by an emperor when she was born. She said that the secrets to her long life were eating delicious things and sleeping well. So I guess we won't be living to 117 then.
Oh, here. We can always eat delicious things, can't we? May she rest in peace. Deepika Laurent with a roundup of what's making headlines. That's it for now. Stay tuned, though. More headlines coming up after the break.